Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, Forever in Memory. In this video, we'll be honoring American celebrities who have passed away today and in recent days, along with other notable figures from around the world. Before we begin, please show your support by giving this video a like. It really helps the channel. Thank you. And let's get started.
Died on September 19, 2025. Mike Wofford, 87, was an American jazz pianist and composer revered for elegant touch, unshowy virtuosity, and a career that bridged West Coast modernism with singer-centered craft. Raised in San Diego, after an early start in Texas, he became a first-call accompanist at the piano for Sarah Vaughan in 1979 and later musical director for Ella Fitzgerald from 1989 to 1994, appearing on her final studio album, All That Jazz. As a leader, he recorded cult favorites like Strawberry Wine and Summer Night, a luminous solo entry in the Maybach Recital Hall series, and a long-running partnership of albums and tours with his wife, jazz flutist Holly Hoffman. Across decades, he worked with Shorty Rogers, Shelly Manne, Joe Pass, Zoot Sims, Benny Carter, and many others, prized by peers for time, taste, and the way his voicings seemed to breathe. San Diego remained his home base and musical commons, where he mentored players and anchored residencies, even as his discography grew. Wofford's legacy is the rare combination of finish and feeling. A pianist who could carry a room alone or disappear into a singer's line so the song itself could shine.
Died on September 19, 2025. Brian Neal was a Manx-born painter-turned-sculptor whose welded abstractions and quietly exact teaching shaped post-war British sculpture. Trained at the Royal Academy Schools after Douglas School of Art, he shifted from painting to metal in the early 1960s, mastering fabrication's clean lines and engineered balances. A breakthrough Whitechapel show in 1966 preceded his election to the Royal Academy. He was the first abstract sculptor admitted in 1974, and decades of influence followed. Professorships and leadership roles at the RA, long service on the Royal College of Art's sculpture faculty, and work that entered major collections in Britain and abroad. Rooted in the Isle of Man and a founding figure in its Arts Council, Neal stayed connected to home, even as his career centered on London studios and galleries. Late honors acknowledged the span of that life in art, among them an MBE in 2019, and tributes after his death described a generous mentor and meticulous curator as well as a maker. Fittingly, his final public piece, Ellipse, is slated for unveiling in the Tynwald National Park and Arboretum, a last conversation between his forms and the landscape that first shaped his eye.
Died on September 20, 2025. Zubin Garg, 52, was the Assamese superstar whose voice jumped borders and genres, an all-terrain singer-composer who moved from campus rock and Bihu folk to Bollywood ballads and Sufi pop without losing the grain of home. National fame arrived with Ya Ali from Gangster, 2006, but his catalog was vast. Assamese and Bengali albums that defined youth culture in the Northeast, film scores, acting and directing credits, and sessions in 40-plus languages that made him a rare pan-Indian polyglot of melody. He died in Singapore after a scuba diving accident, a day before he was slated to perform at a Northeast India festival there. tributes poured in from artists and politicians alike, a measure of how completely he had become the soundtrack of a region and a bridge to the rest of the country. Born Zubin Barthakor in Meghalaya and raised in Assam, he broke through with the Assamese album Anamika 1992 and spent 3 decades writing, arranging, and producing songs that treated hooks and folklore with equal respect. Honors followed, including a National Film Award, Music Non-Feature, and an honorary D.Lit late in life, but he wore the laurels lightly. The work was the point. To fans, he was Zubin Da, a restless studio rat and tireless stage act, whose output, by some counts, tens of thousands of recordings, felt less like a career than a running conversation with his audience. His legacy endures wherever a festival crowd sings back a chorus he carried from Guwahati to Mumbai and out into the world.
Died on September 19, 2025. Julieta Norma Fiero Gosman, 77, was Mexico's most beloved popularizer of astronomy, a UNAM astrophysicist who turned hard science into everyday language for millions through books, TV, classrooms, and museum halls. A full researcher at UNAM's Institute of Astronomy and professor in its Faculty of Sciences, she wrote 40-plus books, many for young readers, fronted countless lectures and workshops, and helped build and lead science spaces such as Universum, all while keeping an active research interest in the interstellar medium and the solar system. For this bridge building between lab and public square, she earned major honors, including UNESCO's Kalinga Prize and the Astronomical Society of the Pacific's Klumpke Roberts Award, and, since 2004, held a seat in the Mexican Academy of Language, a rare recognition for a scientist. Her colleagues also tapped her to chair education initiatives within the International Astronomical Union, reflecting a lifetime belief that curiosity expands when you make knowledge sing. Born in Mexico City in 1948, Fiero never stopped teaching. Even late in life, she was publishing hands-on science activities and appearing at festivals to argue that astronomy helps us return to our origins, to nature, to wonder, to each other.
Died on September 20th, 2025. Jairus Kipchoge Birech, 32, was a Kenyan steeplechase star whose 2014 season, African champion, Diamond League overall winner, and world-leading 7:58.41, announced him as one of the finest barriers runners of his generation. A Commonwealth Games silver medalist the same year, he was part of Kenya's deep steeplechase lineage, prized for even splits, crisp water jumps, and a late-race drive that broke fields in Monaco, Lausanne, and Brussels. He died after a period of illness, prompting tributes across Kenyan sport. Born in Uasin Gishu in 1992, Birech rose fast. African Junior Silver in 2011, Diamond League mainstay by 2012, and, at 21, victories on the biggest European tracks. His 7:58.41 in 2014 made him the 11th man under 8 minutes and pushed him into the steeplechase all-time top 10. Coaches lauded his economy over barriers. Rivals talked about his relentlessness between them. Even as injuries and illness shortened his competitive arc after 2018, he remained a touchstone for younger Kenyan runners, an example of precision, patience, and courage over 12.5 laps. He is remembered as a champion in results and in craft, a runner who made the most technical event look beautifully simple.
Died on September 20, 2025. Sain, 85, was a Pune botanist, teacher, and beloved popularizer of plant knowledge whose life and work were inseparable from her ethic of living lightly on the earth. A longtime faculty member and former head of the botany department at Abasaheb Garware College, 1962 to 2000, she mentored generations of students and kept publishing long after retirement, handwriting dozens of books that mixed taxonomy, local history, and everyday ecology. She was equally famous for her personal experiment in sustainability, decades without a household electricity connection in her boudoir pet ancestral wada, a routine organized around daylight, a solar lamp, a radio, and the animals she cared for. In Pune's markets and college corridors, she was the encyclopedia of plants, a meticulous field guide with a gift for turning street trees and roadside herbs into living lessons. She leaves a city full of former students, neighbors, vendors, and fellow naturalists who learned from her that science can be both exact and intimate, and that a meaningful life can be built from attention, restraint, and care.
Born on January 30th, 1974, in Haverfordwest, Wales, Christian Charles Philip Bale would grow into one of cinema's most exacting shapeshifters, an actor celebrated for transformative roles that range from sleek anti-hero to broken boxer, from caped vigilante to political chameleon. Audiences know him for the ferocity of American Psycho, the operatic gravitas of the Dark Knight trilogy, and the bruised tenderness of The Fighter, which brought him an Academy Award. His signature achievement isn't just the hardware. It's the discipline and imagination he brings to building a life on screen from the inside out. Bale's childhood felt like motion itself. His mother, Jenny, had a background in dance and circus performance. His father, David, worked variously in business and activism. The family's moves across Wales and England into Portugal and later to the United States gave him a passport of accents and a knack for observing people closely. He learned early how posture, pace, and tone can tell a story before a word is spoken, habits that would later become the grammar of his acting. School never competed with the pull of performance. As a boy, he picked up dance and stage work, appeared in commercials, and learned what a camera asks of a face. Stillness when you want to fidget. Concentration when the set is chaos. A stint on the West End taught him to trust rehearsal and to carry a scene without telegraphing effort. At home, encouragement came with a practical edge. If you take the work, take it seriously. And Bale proved he could, developing a work ethic that prized preparation over charm. By his early teens, he had a toolkit unusual for his age: precision with voice, fluency with physical detail, and a calm that read as authority in front of an audience. Those qualities drew the attention of directors looking for a young lead who could carry adult material without precocity. Standing on the threshold of his first major screen roles, he'd already formed the habits that would define him. Watch closely, commit fully, and let the smallest choices do the loudest talking. As adolescence gave way to early adulthood, Bale's apprenticeship turned into a career. He moved from commercials and West End stages into television drama, where a small but telling turn as the Tsarevich in Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna, revealed a poise beyond his years. The leap came quickly.
Steven Spielberg cast him as Jim in Empire of the Sun, handing a teenager the burden of a war epic. Bale carried it with a startling mix of vulnerability and resilience. The performance felt observed rather than performed, and it set a template for everything that followed. Immersive preparation, precise physical choices, and an ability to let silence do narrative work. The 1990s became his proving ground. He alternated leads and character roles: Henry Hawkins in Treasure Island, the idealistic Laurie in Little Women, the rebellious dancer in Newsies, the clandestine dissenter in Swing Kids, testing range without rushing into a single persona. He slipped into ensembles for auteurs, Henry V, The Portrait of a Lady, chased subculture glamour and Velvet Goldmine, and even lent a clean, boyish timbre to animation, Pocahontas, a reminder that his most identifiable instrument, the voice, was deliberately flexible. Casting directors learned that he could age up or down on camera, that he handled period cadence as easily as contemporary slang, and that he arrived on set with a backstory mapped in pencil margins. The craft hardened quietly. Bale kept notebooks, built physical routines for each part, and treated accents like architecture, foundational rather than decorative. He worked from the outside in, posture, gait, weight, and the inside out, moral temperature, private rituals, meeting in the middle with performances that felt inhabited rather than illustrated. He also learned when not to chase attention. In supporting roles, he could withdraw a fraction and make the scene sharper for his restraint. By the end of the decade, he had completed a rare transition: the child lead who becomes an adult actor without the awkward gap. Smaller films such as Metroland and The Secret Agent confirmed his taste for character over comfort, while television and festival projects kept the muscles warm between larger shoots. What knit it all together was a growing willingness to risk, roles that asked for vanity to be set aside, that allowed awkwardness, cruelty, or fragility to surface without apology. Standing at the threshold of the new millennium, he was ready for parts that would demand complete reinvention, prepared to push body and psyche further if the story required it.
The turn of the millennium gave Bale the canvas his method demanded, and he painted in extremes. American Psycho 2000 announced the adult actor in full, icy, hilarious, and terrifying in the same breath, while staking out a theme that would recur in his work: identity as performance, mask as mirror. Then came the physics-defying metamorphoses. For The Machinist 2004, he stripped himself to a spectral silhouette, a body as prop that made insomnia look like a haunting. Months later, he rebuilt into the armored grace of Batman Begins 2005, launching a trilogy that reframed the superhero as a moral and psychological epic. Between capes and cowl, he threaded sleight-of-hand prestige dramas like The Prestige, survivalist endurance with Rescue Dawn, and American Myth recast as hard men with soft centers, 3:10 to Yuma, each time recalibrating voice, weight, and gait until a new person stood where the last one had been. With The Dark Knight 2008 and The Dark Knight Rises 2012, Bale and Christopher Nolan made blockbuster spectacle feel authored. The growl wasn't a quirk, but a shield. The physicality was an ethic, discipline as character. While those films redefined the franchise movie, Bale kept slipping outside doors to chase sharper notes. The Fighter 2010 let him torque all that discipline into fragility, a vibrating live wire of a man whose bravado can't quite mask the breakage, earning him the Academy Award. Out of the furnace and hostels tested a quieter register, grief that sits in shoulders and jawline. American Hustle turned weight gain and a comb-over into a moral argument about self-invention. Vice, 2018, transformed him into a political sphinx, the mechanics of breath and stillness doing as much as the makeup. In Ford versus Ferrari, the obsession moved to the open road, a driver's monkish focus, kinetic but inward, where the drama is measured in tenths of a second, and the price of pride. Even the detours widened the map. He gave villainy a tragic pulse as Gore in Thor: Love and Thunder, reminded audiences how much narrative a whisper can carry in The Pale Blue Eye, and continued to treat accent and posture like needles on a compass, tiny adjustments that send a character due north. Behind the scenes, he built a reputation for set discipline without fuss, preparation without romance, dialect work done early, physical routines yoked to the script's calendar, props treated as tools to teach the body what the mind already knows. Directors rely on him not only for transformation, but for the connective tissue of a film, the way he keeps a world coherent from scene to scene. What remains, after the headlines about Wade and wigs, is a principle. Bale treats acting as the patient accumulation of small truths until a stranger becomes inevitable. The showy alchemy is there, but it's grounded in craft. How a man ties his shoes when he's late, how he eats when he's hiding something, where the eyes go when the lie becomes habit. From a boy who learned to watch people in transit to an actor who can vanish in plain sight, Christian Bale has built a career that argues, quietly and relentlessly, that character is choice, made again and again, until the camera believes.